T.O. Blaze.
Hey there, this is Tio bringing another Kerbal Space Program video, and today I'm going to be continuing on my quest to send the OG crew, that's Bill, Bob, Valentina, and of course Jebediah, sending them to all the different celestial bodies around Kerbal, which in this case is going to be Moho. So I've got another Moho video that I've posted recently, but this one's going to be different. I'm not going to the Moho this time. These guys just need to plant a flag anywheres on Moho and return to the surface. So I'll be sending the return vessel and the obviously the transfer vehicle and everything all in one launch. So hopefully I don't have to do any mining or anything on Moho. I've got a mining lander and I've got plenty of fuel on my Moho station, but I'd like to not rely on that. So what you see on screen is my efficient return vehicle. So it's got bare minimum parts and really low thrust to weight ratio, but it's going to give me lots of delta V, so I can get back to Kerbin regardless of the transfer window timing, and if I need to make any adjustments or force any kind of rendezvous or transfers, I'll have plenty of delta V to do that. I forgot to include a couple important parts on that return vehicle, which I don't realize until halfway through the mission. But don't have a heat shield, don't have a decoupler, don't have parachutes, so not a great return vehicle for sure. But we'll figure it out as we go. So working on the lower stage. I like the vector engines for their thrust, although I have a lot of trouble with the gimbling being too. Making those engines, those engines make the rocket very wobbly. So I'm sure this design is going to change here in a moment. But so far, that's what I've got: a bunch of vector engines with some boosters that'll feed fuel into the core stage, so that we'll give that core stage some extra distance. So there you saw the whole rocket came apart shortly after takeoff, so it's not very stable. I need to I went through actually a few iterations that I didn't show on the footage. What I decided to do is get rid of those vector engines, at least on the boosters, and I'm going to go with these larger engines. They have similar thrusts but less gimbling, and fewer parts in KSP tends to perform better. So I went from 5 engines per booster to 3, which is like I said, fewer parts, less physics that the game has to work with. So this design worked. Those boosters had enough thrust and fuel to help pretty much get me to orbit, and then the core stage just finished it off. So I've got lots and lots of fuel, lots of staging left to go. I wasn't certain how efficient the takeoff would be. Didn't know if I would need the Rhino engine to circularize or not, but nope, the core stage got me to circularization and most of the way through the transfer burn. So now I've staged again. You see my Rhino engine. It's going to get me the rest of the way, and it's also going to be enough for adjusting my inclination with Moho. Moho is inclined, and I feel like it's hard to get rendezvous with these other planets that have inclined orbits compared to Kerbin. So typically I won't even try to get a rendezvous on the first pass. I'll just try to get my orbit near the target planet, and then I'll match the inclination, and then I'll find a good rendezvous. And there you see, now that my orbit is lower compared to Kerbin, closer to Moho's orbit, I found a point where I could do a second burn, and that would give me a good rendezvous with Moho. So I'm not using the transfer window planner or anything like that. This was just how I'll do certain transfers with places like Moho or Elu or Dress, planets like that, or moons that I find that are hard to get rendezvous with. So now that I'm at Moho, because of that process that I use where I do 2 burns, my velocity was already pretty close to Moho's, so that when I got there, I didn't have to do a 5 or 6 minute burn. It was only a couple minutes, which is nice. So now that I'm around Moho, I'm going to do a rendezvous with my station. I've still got some fuel in my transfer stage with this vehicle, so I'm actually going to dock the whole thing with the station, and I can always use that transfer stage to get back to Kerbin. So now that I'm at the Moho station, I'll give you guys a little tour. There's my refueling lander. It's got some pistons and a docking port on it so that I can send it down to the surface with the rover that has the drills on it. I've got a few other spare parts on the station from a vehicle that I disassembled, and here's the XP lander. So one fuel tank makes it easy to reuse this lander. I don't have to transfer fuel into a bunch of tanks. There you see I'm trying to look for an anomaly on the surface, maybe some interesting reason to land, but didn't find any anomalies on that one pass, so I'm going to go ahead and deorbit now. But a pretty simple lander design. I was going for fuel efficient and easy to reuse. Like I said, one fuel tank makes it really easy to transfer fuel. And then to save on weight, I just use these little external command seats instead of a command pod. So time warping to daylight just to kind of have a little bit of lighting for the video. And I go ahead and jump out with everyone and plant a flag, take a selfie. And yep, now they've all got the experience they need on Moho, which is nice. Got my little photo op. I always take down the flags. Like I've mentioned this in other videos. I hope in KSP2 they revamp the system where you don't need to plant a flag in order to get experience for the mission. And there you see I overshot my ascent by a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and redock with the station and get on back to Kerbin. But yeah, it'd be nice if you didn't have to plant flags, because flags count as a thing that physics can affect, and just one more thing for the tracking station to have. So it'd be nice if there were fewer flags. Maybe tweak that mechanic in the game. Maybe you only need to plant one flag per celestial body, and the rest don't really have any effect. But anyway, this is the part of the mission where I realize I don't have parachutes. So here I'm just looking around the station. Like I said, I took apart another vehicle one time and ripped all the useful spare parts off of it and just glued them to the station. But I don't have any parachutes, don't have any heat shields that I could have somehow put on. So there you just saw me transfer some fuel to my transfer stage. So now my new plan is to circularize when I get to Kerbin, instead of just doing an atmospheric entry and an aero brake. So I'm shooting for... to get back to Kerbin real quick, I'm going to do the same process as I used to get here in the reverse order. So first I'm going to match inclination with Kerbin. Then I'm going to raise my orbit a little and find a point where I can rendezvous. And then I hit it on the first pass, so I only need to do one long burn. So I'm going to shoot for the upper part of Kerbin's atmosphere, so I can do a little aero brake. I don't want to get into the thicker part where part of my vehicle could explode. So the engines are pretty robust in KSP, so you can do an aero brake at the upper part of the atmosphere, places like Kerbin, with the engines facing, pointing retrograde basically. So here you see my first pass through the atmosphere. I'm not getting too hot and burned plenty of speed, so now I'm circularized. So obviously my new plan is to get the crew off the vehicle or add parachutes somehow. So I thought about sending up a rocket, and I decided no, let's use an SSTO and just go grab the crew, and then I can deorbit the whole vehicle later, or in the vehicle in the video I'll just deorbit it and let it burn up on re-entry. But I like SSTOs. I don't typically have reasons to use them necessarily, and in career mode they can be cost effective because you bring back all the parts, but you burn a lot more fuel. So I got my SSTO up into orbit, and now I'm going to rendezvous with the SSTO. Because the fuel was getting low on it, I decided not to use any more fuel for the rendezvous. So I'm going to use the fuel that's left on the Moho vehicle. So let's get my rendezvous here and transfer my crew. And I've got a docking port on this SSTO. This is an older SSTO I had made and saved, and just dusted it off, and it's pretty functional. I like it. It's got a cargo bay and obviously plenty of room for crew. So I did send up one pilot just to catch this crew, so now I've got 5 crew on board instead of 4. So I'm going to kind of attempt to hit the KSC, the Kerbal Space Center, but I'm far off target. There you can see on the left the little white spot on the coast. So so long as I touch this thing down and my crew survives, because I actually didn't do a quick save up in orbit, I will be happy. So that's getting to the end of the video. I've got one more mission for the OG crew. I need to send them to Eve and to Gilly. So that might be the grand finale of my KSP1 footage on this channel. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I hope to see you again real soon.